So here I was, grinding my way through my 800th MvM tour on a late Friday evening, when somebody sends me this. The Man vs. Machine Political Compass. You know, we've talked a lot about stereotypes before, but never to the tune of a 64-pronged psychological autopsy. So today we'll be taking a magnifying glass to all of the colorful characters that make up MvM society. The compass is divided into 4 quadrants based on levels of competency and toxicity. How bad you are at fighting the robots, and how good you are at fighting your teammates. We'll start with the least toxic quadrants and work our way up. Let me know which one you are in the comments below. The Zero Tour. Unknowingly stepped into the biggest cesspit of TF2. Probably solo queues and has no idea what he's doing. 80% chance he stops playing after 2 tours. I'd say this was true like 5 years ago, but not now, given that the infinite salt mine of high tour shit flinging is half the game mode's ad budget nowadays. Most people know what they're getting into. It isn't as big of a shithole as you'd be led to believe though. It's not uncommon to match with high tours and get a seamless carry to the end without any drama at all. And sure, most Zero tours will quit the game, but that's not surprising. You could blow a couple of bucks on an MvM mission, or you could grind Frontier for an hour while gorging on Mars bars. Makes sense why people don't tend to stick around. The Oblivious. Doesn't have a clue what game he's playing, ignores all attempts to communicate, only time he responds is when he types Y after getting kicked on last. The sheer number of oblivious MvM players is unfortunately what led to the culture going so extreme in the other direction. No one has a problem with newer players messing up. No one reasonable anyways, but if you keep ruining things for your teammates while blowing raspberries and wearing earplugs the entire time, there's literally no way to resolve that issue besides finding another player who won't. Though last wave vote kicks are a jackass move. Every instance where it happens is, in my opinion, clown behavior. If you held on to a dipshit player all the way until the end, clearly the problems weren't big enough to care about. The Pyromane, whether gas or air blast, will always be a pain in the ass. Feels validated because it worked at one time in 2 cities, 75% chance of owning a fursuit. Oh, you're not wrong on that one. Low tour pyros having a bad reputation has been a meme for over a decade at this point. Half of their game time is spent flinging shit around the map, while the other half is spent running in, throwing gas, dying immediately, but you still kill everything anyways because welcome to good balance design. Combine that with not buying resistances, not switching to flog on tank waves, wasting the gas before the medics drop, and everyone's become conditioned to associate this number with this player icon as a newly minted Special Olympics coaching session. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Wave failed Freddy. The reason your team lost Wave 1 twice in a row, probably trying to do something stupid or has little experience, high chance to rage quit before you kick him. I disagree with that last part. Low tours might be ass at the game, but they're like fucking Rocky, man. They don't stop getting back up. High tours usually know when a group is a sinking ship and have enough foresight to get out early. Low tours don't have that, so they'll tank 6 wave losses in a row and still refuse to disconnect. This only really happens on teams full of new players though, but even then, the vast majority of gameplay issues are very recoverable. Most of the time, the team wiping issues are there before the wave even begins, like not having an engineer or deferring the medic killer role to the sniper before he decides to lock in the huntsman. Shit like that. Low tours are no more flaky rage quitters than any other demographic of players. Quite the opposite in my experience, so I think the description here is a bit off base. The Time Waster. Spends all day at the upgrade terminal, never F4s, might occasionally ask the team to wait so he can do something IRL. What people don't seem to understand is that if even one player on your team decides to run the F4 clock down to 0, that adds an extra minute to every single wave. And considering that most missions average around 6 to 7 waves across half-an-hour gameplay durations, you end up tacking on an extra 20% to the mission's total completion time. Not because of losing a gate or getting pushed back to the hatch, but because one kid on the other team is alt-tabbed while drooling into their lucky charms. I've been studying this phenomenon for over a year now, and have almost 100 missions worth of data. Eventually I'll talk more about this in detail. F4s are the worst part of Man vs. Machine. They break the game flow more than any overpowered upgrades ever ever could. The Bubble Boy. His entire perception of MvM comes from YouTube and Reddit, doesn't actually know anything about how MvM actually works or what it's like. Okay, so this one's kind of vague, but my interpretation of this is that these are the players who have done nothing but binge MvM rage compilations or Reddit threads complaining about high tours, which ends up giving a very warped perception of the game mode that's just not based in reality. These usually aren't even MvM players, just randos laying in bed amusing themselves with the psychotic spurgouts of the lion. Their engagement with the game mode doesn't go much beyond that. The TacoBot Schizo thinks everything bad that happens in MvM is due to TacoBot. Reddit admin Energy reports every person who's toxic in MvM for harassment. Okay, that last one is definitely not true. Can't remember a time where anyone decided to pull out the report card. If that worked at all, MvM would have a much different reputation. The rest of it is pretty on point though. TacoBot has become an all-encompassing synonym for dickbag MvM player, even though the vast majority of shitty encounters have nothing to do with TacoBot, especially in 2026. It's a catch-all term that nowadays is pretty outdated. Maribot is who you actually gotta look out for, but we'll get to them later. The Medic main always insta-locks Medic even when there's no NG or Scout, always assumes that people will die without being pocketed, will never use a canteen, ever. So a common noob MvM opinion is that Medic is the most important class in the game, likely a holdover from other co-op games where the healer is an essential role, likewise with casual TF2. In MvM, however, this just isn't the case. He's a solid choice to be sure, but nowhere even remotely close to being essential. As long as the DPS classes buy a few points of health on kill, that's enough sustain to keep them alive. Now, if you decide to spam canteens on your teammates, he catapults himself back into peak position, but most new MvM players don't really do this. They got the shields and the Ubers and the heals to make themselves a valuable asset, but rolling chug jugs on cooldown is something that most low tours don't ever think of doing, let alone know how to do at all. The Child, much to everyone's dismay, managed to get his hands on an MvM ticket. Completely unteachable, everyone celebrates when his final ticket is consumed. This was a much larger chunk of the player base a decade ago. Half the reason I tried out MvM to begin with was because of the old diaper teleporter video from Star and Germa. Valve also used to put Tour of Duty tickets in everyone's Christmas stockings, which gave every player with a pulse a free mission of their choosing. Everyone quickly learned to avoid solo queuing around this point in time. Haven't seen a squeaker over the mic in years at this point. Most of the new bloods seem to be teenagers at the very least. Oil Spill, either completely brainless low tours or high tours playing troll strats. Between no Aussies and boring long waves, queue here is fucking dead. The vast majority of Oil Spill queues are done accidentally by first-time players who have no idea that it doesn't drop Australiums. This is one of the biggest problems with the game mode in general, and in my opinion, Valve should just delete the tour entirely. Solo queuing can sometimes take over half an hour, there's no payoff at the end, and the gameplay is the equivalent of eating a big plate of unseasoned, overcooked rice. If Valve were smart, they would take it out of the game. It's nothing but a detriment to have this be a common first impression for new players. Kicked on last, probably ran into toxic high tours without realizing it, or thought he was safe to complete, likely on the verge of quitting MvM entirely, bonus points if he gets kicked silently for fun. So this is a very rare occurrence, but it does happen to new players every once in a while. There will be a dedicated stack of high tour players with well-known reputations for being shitbags, and everyone who's been around the block knows to stay away from them. New players don't get that same luxury, so they spend the whole game thinking they're getting an easy carry to the end, only for the high tours to pull the rug from under them and cuck you out of loot drops right at the very end. Sometimes it's for cheap, toxic thrills, sometimes it's revenge for forcing them to pick up your slack, other times it's nothing personal and they just want their friend using a VPN to replace you last second, all in the name of synchronizing their tour progress. It's the hallmark of self-serving dickish behavior, but thankfully it happens almost never. Steel Trap, just Oil Spill with Aussies. 50% of the player base are men wearing thigh-high socks, insanely boring wave layouts. No one ever willingly queues for Steel Trap unless they've got a full party to accompany them. It does drop Australiums, but you're paying a 6-ticket entry fee for that roll of the dice instead of the common 3 or 4 found in other tours. You don't even get robot parts for your troubles, so there's no reason you should ever play Steel Trap over anything else. Okay, maybe one reason. Low Tour Larry plays off-meta MvM loadouts and classes, might not even use upgrades, plays MvM purely for fun and to goof around. This is true, but usually out of ignorance and not personal choice. choice. Most new players have no idea what classes, loadouts, and upgrade paths are the best, so they just run with whatever sounds good. Half of them don't even know there's a character tab to buy resistances on, so usually one crit rocket sends them packing. We've all been here though. The high tours hitting 4-digit grind numbers were the low tours of yesteryear, buying shit like metal regen and burn damage. Eventually, everyone gets over the hump. Jesus is Lord. Always dogshit despite constantly repeating tours, will call you a cheater if you outdamage them, rambles about Christianity while also being completely schizo. I've encountered this guy before, and I've never had any problems with him. He's been in a lot of my gear grinder games over the years. Okay, on second thought, I'm not sure if this guy's doing a bit here. So this guy's like an actual MvM Jehovah's Witness? Oh yeah, look at that. I don't think this guy plays Steel Trap, fellas. Yeah, they don't even deserve to be called human. What happened to that whole love for all thing on your profile? By the way, the only way that God knows if you're banging a dude or not is if he's watching, which is kinda gay. Isn't gambling a sin in Christianity? Like, why do you have 200 tours? MvM has some weird people, man. The Wheezy Viewer. Hey, that's you guys. Skill ranges from trash to mediocre. Thinks that drama from 3 years ago is still going on. 50% chance he doesn't even play MvM. That's true, actually. I remember polling my audience about their MvM activity status, and I don't recall the numbers off memory, but I remember it was very low. The sparse upload cadence of the TF2 community makes even vaguely relatable TF2 videos something that gains a large following. Broadly speaking, you guys are shit at the game, and that's okay, because all that means is I get more juicy ad revenue whenever you rewatch the old weapon tier lists and what have you. My dashboard indicates it's a yearly tradition for many of you, of which I am forever grateful. The F2 bot. Always F2s no matter what, just wants to finish his tour, 50% chance of rage quitting if somebody else gets kicked. So this is referencing pressing F2 whenever a vote kick is called. These are players who find vote kicking usually unproductive, and simply carrying a shit player or teaching them how to play is less of a hindrance than searching for a new body. Most of the time they'll leave if it's their friend on the chopping block, but that's very rarely the case actually. Even calling a vote kick is enough to indicate a disparity in values between the kicker and the rest of the team. That distinction alone is enough to prompt a swift disconnect from a lot of players, especially on the early waves. Alright, so that was the bottom left quadrant, the low skill, low toxicity one. Now we're moving over to bottom right. Low toxicity, but high skill. 2 cities. 95% chance you started here, as it's by far the most profitable and has the most class variety. You either play 100 tours and leave, or stay and rack up 1,000 tours. And most MvM players just usually get a couple missions in a few times a year, and not much beyond that. The demographic of players emptying out their piss drawers for their weekly allowance doesn't cross outside 100 or so. 2 cities being the most popular is entirely down to the robot parts and fabricator drops. If these were transferred over to other tours, you'd see the player base shift overnight. Players don't follow the gameplay or the class variety. They follow the incentives. Basic competency. Never bad, never great, usually around 10 to 50 tours. Painless to deal with, what most people wish randoms were like. If you ever get a group of players like this, you're almost always in for a smooth ride. They're experienced enough to know where to stand, what upgrades to buy, and what classes to play, but not experienced to the point of getting caught within the schizo turf wars that encompass half of high tour player interactions. They're workhorse players who queue in, do their job, get their loot, and fuck off. Nothing wrong with that. TacoBot was the OG toxic MvM group. Got serious attention in 2020 for their kick list, tried improving their image, didn't work, group's basically fucking dead, lamau. So TacoBot was the first large-scale MvM group to actually gain some notoriety outside of the hardcore MvM scene. Their blacklist in particular was a massive public shaming board for the most minor infractions out there, and many of their players reveled in gatekeeping low tours so their precious solo queue experience wouldn't be tainted with apes, at least without a black mark next to their name. Around 2022 is when TacoBot rebranded themselves as an anti-cheater group primarily, only publicly blacklisting hackers and the players who queue with them. This shift never really molded its way into the public consciousness. Like I said, even today, TacoBot is still used as a pejorative for jackass high tours all the time. Nowadays, most of them are pretty mellow. Not to say all of them are, but the days of COVID-era Taco Bot are long over. Half of them barely play the game anymore. The Low Manner, usually pretty high skill, but never ever shuts up about how many missions that they've low man. Strong low manner to cheater/cheater supporter pipeline. Unfamiliar with that last part, very familiar with the first one. Low manners are the guys who grind out MvM missions with as few players as possible, usually 2. They attempt as many duo class combinations as can be done, and get off on being the first team to grind out a never been done before combination. It's a badge of honor in the hardcore MvM scene, and you'll definitely hear about it. Even tried it myself a few months ago. It's a pretty fun challenge. Basil has spent the last year and a half working on fixing his image after Wheezy made 3 videos showing him to be a massive retard. Nobody really cares and still treats him like a leper. To this day, I think the Cheater Saga is probably the most entertaining series of videos on this channel. Part 2 in particular, I still think is my best video ever, and I don't know if it'll ever be topped. Funny thing is, I never would have gone after Basil if he didn't start spamming my viewers with bullshit and intentionally dragging unrelated parties into his mess. Well, isn't that a striking parallel? Even in 2026, his current stance is that he had nothing to do with it. I guess there's a surplus of German Yakuza fans with an interest in defending random MvM players from multi-year drama. Surely this is all just a random coincidence. He actually went on to start a YouTube channel based on all the notoriety we gave him, and you know, the content creator in me can't help but respect the hustle. Good for him, honestly. Still a compulsive liar though. The Golden Pan winner pulled the lottery wheel lever and won. 50% of the time it's some noob who has no idea how lucky they are and will likely get scammed by trader mains. Pinging the entire player base every time there's a Golden Pan drop is a really cool addition that helps sanction the item status within the game itself. Problem is that it was rife for abuse. Any Nigerian prince off the block could pull up a user within seconds and start flooding the account with phishing links or bogus trade offers. Valve actually caught on to this, and as of half a year ago, there's now a 7-day trading restriction on the Golden Pan. So at least all the airheaded low-tour Larrys out there have a minor buffer window to protect their shit. For most Golden Pan winners, their MvM journey stops the moment they get one. The Challenge Chaser plays off-meta loadouts and class comps, but actually knows how to make them work. Usually found in 2 cities, 6-stacking medics, or playing spy. I never really see 6-stacks go for the weird funny strats. Most of them are just zooming through missions with instant F4 scripts using the most effective tactics available. If I ever see a 6-man medic stack, it's likely because 2 players decided to be medic and both of them stubbornly refused to switch off, which prompts a 3rd player to switch to medic as a joke, and at the point where the ready up timer winds down to 0, you've created a Frankenstein monster of a team. Solo queue off-classing, however, is very common. After hundreds of tours, you gotta do something to keep things interesting. The Carry, completely silent, usually a soldier or demo man with 10,000 hours, will carry your game without a sweat and never be seen again. Beggar soldiers, Scottish resistance demos, and Heatmaker snipers can single-handedly carry most of a mission if they've got each wave memorized to a T. They know where to stand, what to buy, and where to be at all times, to the point where the whole mission essentially goes on autopilot. They don't talk and chat much because that's extra effort, more shit to think about, and they'd rather just zone out while watching Netflix on their second monitor. Maybe they'll crash out about not F4ing fast enough, but that's about it. Wheezy. Hey, that's me! The only TF2 YouTuber that doesn't give garbage advice. Mediocre player tour count wise, Bill Gaither and Mari practically pay his rent. Pretty based he makes a living this way, to be honest. I think that sums it up pretty nicely. This shitty gambling sim from 2012 has allowed me to live out the neat dream of doing nothing but playing video games and talking shit for a job. Hard to find things to complain about nowadays. The drama stuff I only enjoy in small doses though. I usually need like a year-long cleanse between these kinds of uploads because of how fucking miserable it can be sometimes. Not denying that mediocre player accusation either. Most MvM players with 850 tours are probably better than me, but all of you fuckers had a 10-year head start to become the MvM guy before I started lopping up those content scraps like the hungry hippo I am. You had your chance, you blew it, and now you gotta deal with the peel. Burned out High Tour. No longer has the energy to be toxic or yell at randoms, usually solo queues in 2 cities. Most of his friends probably quit a while ago, and he likely will too. A big reason why MvM Toxicity has been on the decline for years is because being constantly abrasive and negative to randoms is extremely draining. It's hard to go multiple years on end of being a hyper-aggressive upgrade inspector, sparking endless amounts of interpersonal drama and have it not become fatiguing after a while. They have no desire to be the hero or be the villain anymore, just an aimless tour farming degenerate with no highs left to chase. Without friends to keep you occupied, at a certain point you realize you're just wasting your time. The teacher, probably the only thing keeping new players from quitting entirely, will probably teach for a year, get discouraged, and either go toxic or quit. Likely a masochist. So this is referencing the fact that coaching new players is a test of patience unlike no other. You think it'd be as simple as buy these upgrades, don't shoot Uber medics, F4, play game, but that's not how it goes the vast majority of the time. There have been so many bad apples that don't want to communicate or tell everyone to fuck off and let them play how they want, which in a cooperative game mode isn't a mindset that most people appreciate when your actions can negatively affect others in your group. This is enough to radicalize a lot of high tours onto a path of toxicity out of nothing but sheer contempt for their good faith efforts not being recognized. The players who avoid that impulse are the ones keeping new blood around. The 6-stackers. Always playing in a 6-stack has an aneurysm if a tour takes more than an hour to complete. Playing with other high tours has ruined solo queuing for them. Highly skilled 6-mans can genuinely complete missions with times comparable to speedrunners. Most of the lulls in solo queue lobbies are entirely down to slow F4s or someone popping Uber medics and getting pushed back because of it. Neither of these happen in coordinated high tour stacks, so it's hard to give up the easy convenience once you have it on standby. Instead of entering an environment that they know will annoy them and taking their anger out on their teammates, they decide to party stack to avoid it entirely. The more people who do this, the better. The student. Always trying to learn, watch guides, or ask other high tours for advice. Desperately wants to improve, will likely go on to rack up hundreds of tours. A lot of this isn't born out of enjoyment, but born out of anxiety. The fear of letting your team down and getting the boot is so pronounced for new players that some people will binge hours of content before feeling informed enough to give the game mode a go. It's usually not necessary, but it is fun to learn hidden tech that the vast majority of players in your tour bracket have no clue exists yet. The Saint will always stick around until the game ends or the team leaves, regardless of how long it takes. Always the one trying to help settle arguments and ease hostilities. These are the pro-social, hyper-agreeable people that work extremely well in team environments. Not just in TF2, but in literally every aspect of life. They're hard to anger, easy to get along with, and very forgiving of any in-game related wrongdoings. Some players are true stoics, but most people can't keep the act up without wanting to kill bind IRL. Creamy Jr., highest tour count in all of MvM by far. Pretty much exclusively found in expert 6-stacks, senior citizen, has a backpack worth more than your house. Okay, so this guy is just genuinely a fucking maniac, and I don't mean that in the traditional sense. Creamy Jr. has completed, no joke, almost 7,500 tours. That is fucking insane. But what's even more insane is that he's 1,800 tours ahead of second place. 1,800. That's a big enough number to put you in the top 100 worldwide just on its own. And that's just his delta between him and the next guy on the rankings. His backpack is pages upon pages of purples too. Where the fuck does the guy get the money for this? I've never seen Creamy Jr. in game myself, so I assume he lives and dies by the party stack. But the reality of having a near 5,000 tour gear grinder badge is something that's just incomprehensible to me. The thought of grinding like 2 tours a day for a decade is straight up fucking nauseating, and I get paid for this shit. This guy just does it for the love of the game. Within the next few years, he'll probably be the first player in TF2 history to hit a 5-digit tour count. Just 4,000 hours and $8,000 to go. How people can go on like this for a decade, I'll never know. Sola the Sun God. Second highest tour count in all of MvM, carries on US despite being 300 ping from Korea, ridiculously chill. I got nothing to add for this guy. Never seen Sola in a game either, though 70% of his tours do come from Mecha Engine, so I'm assuming he's a fan of Cookie Clicker. And that's the bottom right quadrant done. Now we're going to the top left. These are the low skill, high toxicity types. The least redeeming combination of all. The Cheaters Supporter. A slave to cheaters. The mental gymnastics used to defend it are insane, blinded by gambling addiction. So this makes up about 50% of the total MvM community. Half of the player base are completely fine with taking a free win wherever they see one. The gameplay experience is a mere obstacle to the loot farm at the end. People would sooner levitate to the finish line than uphold the game mode's integrity. It's just a monkey-brained, want things now style mentality without any regard for how it devalues the rewards or the grind it takes to get them. In my opinion, defending it is a bad call, but I do understand why a lot of people are mostly ambivalent towards them. People like their quick and easy Aussies. Why walk in the cold when you can take the train? The Riku spammer. Riku spams all the time when he gets kicked, has no idea what the join in progress box means, and just leaves it checked. I guess this is referring to the type of player who joins mid-game, is forced onto one particular class because of an already established team comp, sucks shit at that job they were forced onto, gets kicked, and then repeats the process ad nauseum until he learns how to uncheck the button. That's one piece of advice I definitely give to new players. Always start off with fresh games. It gives you and your team way more leeway to sort out which players are best suited towards each class. In-progress games have in-progress problems. If you can't be whatever finishing puzzle piece the team might need to get the waves rolling again, avoid putting yourself in that situation to begin with. The language barrier. Usually a South American playing on an EU server with ungodly ping, impossible to understand what he's saying even with translators, 100+ ping always. Something you'll realize very early on is a lot of these players end up tagging along in high tour groups primarily. Newer teams can struggle a lot with missions early on, and if no one's able to communicate, they usually disintegrate very quickly. Big Rock Snipers and SR demos, on the other hand, don't need a translator, so these will be the games where typing hieroglyphics to each other won't result in the nearest brick wall taking 5 consecutive head bashings. The meta slave will always adhere to the meta, cannot define the meta to save his life, will probably scream at heavy for running stock, and then hit second lowest damage. Most MvM players only know that something is meta, and not exactly why something is meta. The two cities comp of Scout, Soldier, Demo, Heavy, NG, and Medic is very much a relic of the early days where access to refunding upgrades after each wave didn't exist yet. Most waves in the game can be optimized far beyond that composition's peak potential, especially on the other tours where the two cities meta is still heralded as gospel among new players despite the balancing conditions being entirely different. It's a good skeleton to build a team off of, ditto with having the highest utility options in each weapon slot, but it isn't this rigid structure that must be strictly adhered to. Most people can dip their toes outside the meta, and provided you're not running 3 Trolgers, you'll be fine. The cheater. Always have an awful ego when all they did was install scripts, claim what they do is okay because it's PvE, many of them were caught being bot hosters and casual, fuck these people. I can't say much in the way of cheater personalities. Contrary to what many high tour schizos might believe, my experience in talking with them is very limited. If they're bot hosting and casual though, that makes them the genuine scum of the earth. It just shows that you're not actually in it for the free loot. You're there to cause as much damage to the game as possible. The credit exploiter. Somehow even more insufferable than actual cheaters. It's in the game, bro, why are you complaining? Okay, so I've ignored this one for a while now, but let's just say that with a clever use of game mechanics and a lot of front-loaded downtime, the infinite money glitch wasn't entirely patched out. I've tried to keep it under lock and key for years, but I think we're at the point now where if Valve doesn't patch it, it'll get abused day one of the MvM update like mad. That'll be way more destructive than letting the cat out of the bag right now and hopefully seeing a fix. GitHub link is in the description, go give it some eyeballs, hopefully Valve addresses it before the new tour launches. The rage baiter. Almost always just trying to troll for reactions, usually done after a high tour tells them what to do. Bonus points if they have a YouTube channel under 100 subs. It's no secret that high tours often have very short fuses, and the moment people identify that, they can become easy targets for content farming. Triggering people into manic freakouts for an easy 100k YouTube video, or just a funny Discord stream sesh, has become a meta onto itself at this point. They don't play for the loot, they play for laughs. The wave sniper will always re-queue unless it's past wave 3, almost always a solo player, probably could do 2 whole missions in the time it takes for him to snipe a wave. Speaking from experience, trying to queue for an MvM mission with the sole intent of getting a mission that already has 20 minutes shaved off of it is deceptively counterproductive. Most open slots are from newer players rage quitting after a couple wave losses, so unless it's very far into the game, you're still, at best, breaking even on your time investment due to the group's lower damage output and slower F4 times. You're much better off playing a mission from scratch instead of digging for one that isn't. You'll waste way more time in queue than you ever would just smashing through all the waves you're trying to bypass. The anti-toxic will idle or grief anyone if they act toxic, usually just mad that a high tour told them to swap off second NG. This is another one that I've never seen before. I've only ever seen people purposefully grief because of interpersonal drama or something related to cheating. Destroying MvM lobbies in the name of combating toxicity is just kind of ironic, I guess. The debater will always be a contrarian and try to argue, usually seen trying to explain stuff like crit canteens are bad or Tomislav is good actually. Outside of one very famous instance of somebody being very adamant that dispenser range is overrated, I've never seen this. Most Tomislav heavies don't even try arguing about whether or not they're being a dumbfuck. They just appeal to some kind of platitude or brush it off with let me play how I want. Or something more akin to don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. Well, would you look at that? Considers himself to be an expert, in reality has mediocre to low skill. Refuses to be taught or get help, will try to tell high tours how to play. Every mission narrator's worst nightmare. If you ever hear someone say, I know what I'm doing, they don't. Ever. These people operate on some kind of divine inspiration, as if the poor track record of a particular strategy will miraculously dissipate and not apply to them and them alone. There's a reason why people experienced with the game mode give you a heads up beforehand. Just because the shit isn't out yet doesn't mean it ain't coming. The Leech. Usually a mediocre skill, mid to low tour player that begs to play with other high tours. High tours only keep them around so they have majority vote. Well, that and fast F4s. Having one extra guy not fucking around at the vending machine all day matters more than some scarce vote kick utility. Although I guess for some people it isn't a scarcity, but a way of life. Avoiding downtime both while queuing and during wave interims is the main benefit. As long as they're actually playing the game, it's hard to call that leeching in my eyes. The Rage Baby throws a massive tantrum whenever he can't play how he wants, abysmally dogshit, desperately tries to re-queue spam after getting kicked on last. Usually players who are that bad have zero idea you can get back into a lobby that you were kicked from. Instead, they often go to the kicker's profile and start typing mean shit about them. But like I said earlier, kicking on last is always a dick move. If you can tolerate someone's gameplay and they aren't impeding the efficiency of the team, they clearly weren't enough of a deterrent to warrant getting kicked at the end. Throwing a shit fit over not being able to spam scorch shot all game is definitely something that does happen, but most of the time people do switch off whenever you ask them to. If your teammates are asking you to stop making life harder for everybody else in your lobby and you stubbornly refuse to do so, then if a vote kick has your name on it, I'm not too sympathetic. When you aren't respecting the wishes of your fellow teammates in a cooperative game mode, why should they ever respect yours? Jake 10033, by far the biggest lolcow of 2025, spends 19 hours a day trying to idle and get low tours to carry him, tries to grief, is horrible at it. This is another guy who I've had multiple encounters with, and literally every single one of them has been completely cordial. He's a pretty quiet guy from what I remember. Even his Steam profile gives off that vibe. Dude has nothing in the way of theatrics. I don't know, he seems pretty chill to me. If that opinion ever changes, odds are he ends up in a video one day. Right on cue. Literally, as I was recording to get mecha footage for this video, I stumbled onto Jake throwing the game. He purposefully went AFK to fuck up the group, got kicked and rejoined 5 times in a row, but not before calling me a broke, retarded, cheater-supporting, I don't know, something bad. Like people think I'm strawmanning. Yes, these people actually exist. The Pizza Bot video from 4 years ago still has a beachside condo in his frontal lobe. Yeah, there's another one for the Wheezy cinematic universe. Maybe one day he'll make a return. The Schizo has beef with 90% of the MvM community, usually for petty reasons, almost always leaves immediately after loading in due to seeing someone they know in the lobby. The weird thing is that half of these long-term grudges are like one guy decided not to vote kick someone for using the Liberty Launcher 2 years ago. Small infractions like this are everywhere, so these people have a tendency to make an enemy out of everyone who's even remotely charitable to new players. If F2ing a vote kick is enough for you to hold a multi-year grudge, then frankly you're doing everybody a favor by getting out of there ASAP. No one wants to be around you anyways. If everyone you meet smells like shit, at a certain point you gotta check your own shoe. The Air Blast Griefer has mastered the art of making sure that the wave fails every time, will pyro push for the slightest provocation. Air Blast Griefing is kinda strange in how it actually takes a fair bit of skill. At the very least knowledge of when it's best best to expend ammo, when to stall the game, what robots to focus and which ones to avoid, getting into position for the most opportune troll spots. There's a lot going on for your average pyro griefer. When it's used to counteract cheater lobbies, I don't give a fuck. I think it's pretty based actually. But when it's used to simply mess with one guy out of a personal vendetta in an otherwise completely innocuous lobby, you become more of an asshole than the guy you're targeting. Again, destroying an MvM lobby in the name of fighting toxicity is one of the most hilarious concepts I've ever heard. You're not helping your teammates weed out the bad actor. You're using them as hostages for your own vindictive grudge match. You're not fighting the bad guy, you are the bad guy. And for the final quadrant, we have the high toxicity, high skill players. This is where a lot of MvM's most degenerate players reside. The MvM community. Whether you came for the loot, the fun, or got dragged along by friends, you're now stuck in one of the worst hellscapes in all of TF2. So this is just over-exaggerated garbage not worth taking seriously. If you unironically believe this, you either don't play the game mode and are exclusively influenced by YouTube rage bait, play the game mode but only exist in severely mentally ill high-tour cliques where drama is a way of life, or are someone with a piss-poor attitude who causes all the problems and blames everybody else when no one wants to play with you. In many ways, the MvM society is a microcosm of our own. Most people get along just fine. Generic high tour, typically silent, leaves if the lobby as a collective tour count is single digits, will probably carry you if you show decent skill, and F4. If you were to bet on the archetype that embodies the plurality of MvM high tours, it's this one. Hell, they used to be even more willing to tag along with lobbies before the 2021 inspect change shot those coaching prowess in the dick. Nowadays, as long as there's a guarantee your teammates won't shoot Uber medics or spend a minute and a half waiting for one guy to F4, they'll probably stick around. Gear grinder, either the fastest tour or the slowest with no in between. Your grandfather's tour, all the high tours play in 6 stacks or low mans, so good luck finding one. A lot of launch day veterans actually prefer gear grinder over everything else, for no other reason than familiarity. It was added a few months after the official release of the game mode, and was the most elite tour of the bunch. So when they were finally given the ability to drop Australians a year after the Two Cities update, a lot of those players migrated back to the missions that they enjoyed more. Gear grinder without a pre-made is genuinely awful for new players though. Manworks Wave 3 and 5 are especially brutal, same with a lot of the giant Uber medic waves. Low tour heavies still haven't clued in on those guys yet. This is why high tours will jump in a 6 stack and segment themselves in a little gated community, unconcerned with the perils of the common man. Who can blame them honestly? Tour sucks shit sometimes. CK Game Fuel. Get ready to have every single robot spawn, upgrade, and timing explained to you with such precision you'd think he made the tour. As much as I'd like to validate the stories of this guy doing in-depth IRS audits on every player's upgrade path, I can't, because I've literally never played a full wave with him. Every single time I've seen CK Game Fuel, he immediately leaves. He does it so often that it's become a cultural meme among regular players. He has 3,500 tours, and I have zero clue how he's ever hit that mark considering it doesn't seem like he actually plays the game. MvM Lobby guy. MvM Lobby is his life, comments on other people's profiles, probably jacks off to his position on the leaderboard. So for those who don't know, MvM Lobby is a site that shows every player's profile, tour count, robot kills, and a full top 500 ranking for each tour. You can comment on other players' profiles like a disgruntled Yelp reviewer, and given the candor of your typical tribal high tour, that can often go to shit. Only the most dedicated of MvM players use it, but we all know how trustworthy that demographic is with character assessments. I wouldn't put too much stock into it if you're uninformed. The Grinder, a gambling addict of the highest degree, plays at least 5 tours a day, hasn't been outside in 3 weeks, rage quits if pissed off, will never forgive you. This used to be more common when Two Cities first came out. Even as a low tour, I heard stories of people grinding it like a second full-time job. Nowadays, it's only really a dozen or so people who live off of neat bucks and play the game mode non-stop. Either that, or they're 55-year-old boomers who retired early and are yearning for the quick embrace of death. They don't even do it for the loot at this point, just as a means of climbing a tour count status hierarchy. In reality, nobody cares. The Taskmaster micromanages every upgrade and wave, will refuse to ready up unless everyone does what he tells them to do, will turn a 30-minute mission into an hour. That's always been the inconsistency with these guys. They always say they want fast missions, but they end up adding an extra 15 minutes by going on self-flagellatory speeches about how other people aren't playing the game right. All of this time spent bitching and whining and idling in spawn for not being listened to could instead be spent on actually killing the bots. The goal isn't to complete the mission, the goal is to massage their own ego by mandating it be done on their own terms. Idle rockers. One of the most rigid and draconian strategies in all of MvM. Stay off snipers rock and bust tanks, or get ready to hear a lot of nasty words and get kicked. So idle rocking is the aforementioned Godspot sniper rock that turns the game into a level 1 aim trading simulator for a single player. All you need is an engineer for a maxed out dispenser, a teleporter to set up on the rock Godspot, and a Widowmaker with some crit canteens to gun down those rolling damage sponges. With these two classes, the mission plays itself. Some high tours even group up with 4 alts at a time so they can 2-man the lobby while quadrupling their loot rolls. This has been the predominant strategy for years and should definitely be nerfed one day, but I doubt it ever will be. Mecha Engine, the most bipolar tour in MvM, skill range is either godly or complete trash, solo queue is a pain here, half the high tours are Mari members. Mecha either constitutes an idle rock team AFKing their way through the mission, or everyone getting cock-blocked on Broken Parts Wave 6 before rage quitting after failing for an hour. There's very little in between there. The former has given Mecha the fastest tour completion time of any tour in the game. So if you're looking to roll for as many Australians as possible in the shortest amount of time, this is where you go. There aren't any robot parts or killstreak fabricators, so you do end up losing a lot more money over time, but technically, it is the fastest way of strictly farming Australians. The Gatekeepers. Skilled, but extremely petty. Usually trying to force low tours into boring draconian strategies, will typically call a vote kick or rage quit if you outdamage them with a lower tour count. One thing you'll learn about hardcore MvM gatekeepers is that they actively prevent getting new blood into the game mode, unless they adhere to their infinite Russian nesting doll of purity tests encompassing what the game mode actually should be. Don't you dare off-class for even a moment, or hell, play pyro, even if literally the entire rest of the team is completely fine with it. There's one way to play and one way only. Adopt my framework or get idle griefed. Not fun to play with at all, but these people are like 1% of the player base, if that. Maribot, one of the most schizophrenic, unhinged groups in all of MvM, if not TF2 in general. MvM for them revolves entirely around toxicity. So I'll have a big video later this year going over the history of crazed high tour motley crews, so I won't go too deep here. Just know that Maribot became an all-encompassing splinter faction of old school TacoBot before they transitioned to being more of an anti-cheater group above all else. These players weren't a part of TacoBot for that. They got off on the cheap thrills of bullying new players and making their experience as shitty as possible. So Maribot was forged from the ashes of their old Toxicity branding, which, as mentioned earlier, still never really went away. There's a lot more I could get into, but I'll cut it here for now. You'll all learn way more about this later this year. Fringo, one of the most petty and spiteful individuals in all of MvM, an actual serial killer wanted in multiple countries, has given up on normal sleep hours completely. So Fringo's a member of Maribot who I've actually talked to before, and surprisingly enough has been pretty chill. But ultimately, being a Maribot member is enough to make no one want to associate with you ever. He actually used to be a member of PizzaBot, the most popular MvM cheating group back in the day, before he quit MvM for a couple of years and returned as a dyed-in-the-wool Maribot member. He's a part of some other groups too. A very interesting guy. Wannabe gatekeepers. Desperately wants to be toxic, but usually has no friends and or is mediocre skill. Usually has under 200 tours, can be very annoying. Being overly toxic when not partied up is a piss-poor strategy. At that point, there's no recourse to fight back against being continuously vote kicked. You don't have vote majority to keep yourself in the game, and you're not a strong enough carry to have lobies willing to put up with you. This is usually a bad case of Dunning-Kruger combined with hyperinflated egotism, as if you earn the right to be a jackass to your team based on how many hours you have on the game mode. Debate the morality of it all you want, but more than anything, it's just bad strategy. No one wants to play with you people. The Idler will go idle at the slightest annoyance, usually in a 3-stack so you can't kick them, get ready to re-queue, 3-man, or spend 8 hours idling. That last part is no joke, by the way. Some people will literally lock down a server and flood it with alt accounts before even remotely considering the disconnect button, because if they DC, in their minds, they've lost. They'd rather throw away their entire entire evening alt-tabbed while AFK to preserve their own pride. This is another case of dickbags invading games inside of party stacks and using their majority player status as leverage to coerce everyone else to bend to their will, even over the most minute, trivial bullshit. It's not about making the game better, it's about the thrill of being able to control people and fuck up their day when they disagree. Bill Gaither, poster child for MvM Toxicity. Funniest person alive while he's drunk, carries Big Rock Games while hammered out of his mind. So Bill Gaither was actually the guy who founded Maribot after the Great Taco Revolution of 2022. He was also the guy who airblast griefed that Big Rock lobby for 41 minutes and dressed up in an actual Nazi uniform to deliver a Happy New Year's message. One look at his profile and you'll see the kind of guy he is. He's been on this grind for years. While other toxic names have come and gone, Bill Gaither remains as one of the few holdouts alive and kicking. Literally. However, despite Bill's energetic appearance, he's got other shit to do. And as of 2025, Bill Gaither has relinquished his leadership role at Maribot to a new player. Enter Hydractra. MvM Hitler incarnate. Needs a reason not to kick someone. Current leader of Maribot. Might as well re-queue if you see him in your lobby. Remember the MvM Toxicity is a good thing guy? Yeah, that's him. There's way too much lore to go over with Hydractra, but let's just say that he's earned his keep as Bill Gaither's successor. In fact, he too dropped me a Happy New Year's message, but I'll keep the details of that encounter to myself for right now. One day you'll know the full story. Till then, you'll just have to wait. Anyways, thank you all for watching the video. Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and second channel are all in the description. Next week I'll have an update video going over the future of this channel, but for now that's all I got. See ya.